This is election 2021, the Las Cruces School Board Forum for District 2. Thanks for being with us. I'm Anthony Moreno. Our rules today are simple. Candidates have 1 minute to answer each question, and they should not mention an opponent in their answer. I'm also joined by Galván Nash of the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. Our candidates for this forum are Pamela Cort and Henry Young. Pamela, we start with you for the first question. It's pretty simple. Why are you running for the Board of Education? If elected, what will be your priorities?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today and for allowing me this time to speak with you. I really appreciate it. I am running for the school board because education is part of who I am. I am the granddaughter, daughter, and mother of public educators. I have taught for over half my life, 31 years. And I felt like the next logical step after my retirement from the classroom was to move towards policy. And so the school board is part of that beautiful education process where we create policy that is going to help kids all throughout their education. And my priorities then, of course, will be to make sure that our students are receiving an inspiring and challenging education in schools that are safe and warm and well-resourced, and I'm going to continue the great work that's being done by the school board and work on the policy decisions.
All right, we're just about out of time. We're out of time there. I want to move on now to Henry. Same question.
Hey, my name is Henry Young, and I'm running because I too would like to serve both the students, parents, and my entire community. My background is in a slightly different manner, even though I do hold I have taught at many levels, including college level as far as theology. And I am running simply because I want to help my community and the Las Cruces School Board rise above some of the figures that we see concerning where we rank. Now, we are higher in many cases than the state level, which is always near the bottom. But I know we can do better even though we are higher than the state standards or state levels. And I want to help be a part of
All right, Henry, we're out of time for that question. We're going to move now to Galván Nash with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico, who has a question for you, Henry.
Okay.
Hey, Henry, what experiences or skills have prepared you to be serving as a board member?
Very good question. I have been in administration. I am presently the Executive Director of the Las Cruces Gospel Rescue Mission. As I said, I have taught. I have been in admin positions throughout my career. I have a lot of experience in many facets of business as well as education. Much of my teaching is for adults, and I treasure being able to not only teach adults, but children also. And that is just part of my being in wanting to help my community.
Thank you. Same question to you, Pam. What are your experience or skills that have prepared you to serve?
Thank you. So as I mentioned before, I was a teacher in the public schools for 31 years, 26 of which have been in the Las Cruces Public Schools. And during that time, I held many leadership positions, both in the school and in professional organizations. I was named the State Teacher of the Year in 2013, and that experience really gave me a tremendous insight into educational policy. And what it does is it continues to provide me with a national network of teachers where I can talk about policy and educational reform and really get a national view of what's happening. I have my master's in curriculum and instruction, and I have my education specialist degree in curriculum instruction and assessment. I've also served on the board for about 2 months now, and I think that gives me a head start on being able to go with the changes that are going to be made.
All right, now we're going to stay with Pamela. I have a question for you. How does the board member role differ from the role of the superintendent or administration?
So the school board has a very specific function, and I believe there are 5 things that we can do. So we approve and monitor the budget, we create policy, we take care of land acquisitions, and we can sue or be sued. We also evaluate the superintendent. So we're not in charge of the day-to-day operations of the school. That is taken care of by the principals and other people in the schools. As a school board, our decisions are made as a group. Nobody ever acts alone. Whereas the superintendent oversees all of the schools, and then administration takes care of their whatever it is that they're doing, and that's indicated by their title. So they're very, very different functions.
Okay, Henry, same question.
Well, Pamela beat me to the 5 things that we are allowed to do as school board members. I also knew that. But there is a great difference. One of the main of those 5 things that we can do as school board members is to set policy. I liken setting a policy to building a house. Policy is basically what it goes on the foundation. It is the framework of the building. The superintendent takes that framework and puts the finishing touches on, as a finished carpenter does, and makes the house what it is supposed to be. But in the bones of the situation are the policy and the other things that the school board members set up for those finishing touches to be put on by the superintendent and his staff.
Okay, we are at time there with that question. We're now going to go to Joe Galván Nash with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico.
Thank you. Henry, let's start with you. Should the school board take action on civics education, including the understanding of democracy and voting rights? And if you could please explain your answer.
I definitely think that that should be part of the curriculum. Civics is very important for us to understand our heritage at all levels, and if it is not taught in the school system, it will be lost. I happen to have had one of my books that I have been looking at and reading recently. It's called The Portable Patriot, and it is filled with letters that pre-founders of our nation wrote, letters and sermons. It also goes through the founding, including the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and then also documents following that. And we are losing some of that history if we do not bring that into curriculum, I think even in mid-high and high
All right,
school.
we're at time there.
And Pamela, same question to you. Should the school board take action on civics education, including the understanding of democracy and voting rights?
Thank you. That's a great question. And I do agree with Henry. He made some great points. I believe that also that the understanding of how our government works is essential to a well-functioning society. So I think it's imperative that students are informed about voting rights and how our democracy functions. I'd also like to add to that some digital literacy. I think part of some of the problems that we're having right now in democracy is misinformation. And if we teach our students how to research facts rather than opinions, that will also serve as a great civics lesson as well. So a strong understanding of civics and how to research on the internet are both super essential. And I think that the school board should continue to model civil discourse so that our students understand proper government meeting etiquette.
Okay, moving on to the next question for Pamela. Explain your position on charter schools. Do you see positive or negative impacts of these schools?
Thank you. I see positive impacts with charter schools. And the reason why is a traditional school is not a school that fits every learner's needs. And so I think that's the role of charter schools, where they come in to fill those gaps so that the students who are not achieving in traditional schools can achieve elsewhere. I am not in favor of for-profit charter schools, and thankfully the state of New Mexico has a law that prohibits them. So that's sort of a moot point, but I just wanted to throw that in. Our charter schools, however, should be working in concert with the traditional public schools rather than in competition with. And I also think that our charters should have a nice fiscal base that makes sure that there isn't any finaglings going on as far as the charter schools go. Education's all about the kids.
That is time for us.
Okay.
We're going to move on to Henry with the same question.
I agree with much of what Pamela just said. One of the advantages of charter schools is that within their charter, it lists the things that they want to achieve. So we have a built-in framework to judge how they are doing by their own charter. And one of the charter schools that most people are not aware of, we do have a distance learning and online charter school at the state level where even though it is funded through one local school district, I believe it's Clovis, but I'm not sure. And they are doing a tremendous job. It started before COVID, and their teachers and principals are paid by the state. And they are doing a fantastic job. There are certain students that learn better online, not the majority.
That is time. We are now going to Joe for the next question.
Henry, what would you do to promote parental involvement with the schools?
Excellent question. I think with the polarization of some of the things that are happening in society today, parents are getting more involved or wanting to, and we need to have their involvement. I think that parents, in many cases, have abdicated their rights to be involved in the school system and just say, they go to school, teachers, you in the school system take care of everything. And that's not the way that we first set up school systems. There was early parent involvement and in consort with what the school was doing. I know when I was young, if I got in trouble at school, I was even in worse trouble at home when I got there. So we need the parent involvement with the teachers and the school system, along with the students, to make everything work the way it should.
Time.
Thank you. Pam, same question to Pam. What would you do to promote parental involvement?
So I think that the key to family involvement in schools is communication. Las Cruces Public Schools is currently working on increasing that communication because they have reinstated the DAC and the SAC committees. DAC is the District Advisory Council, SAC is the Student Advisory Council. Las Cruces Public Schools also has welcome centers in our middle schools and our high schools. And these welcome centers are basically parent centers where parents can come in and they can learn everything from how to deal with Canvas to English lessons. There's a wide variety of topics. And what I would like to do is expand those welcome centers to the elementary schools so that we have further family involvement at all levels of education. These centers really serve a great purpose because they reduce any apprehension or any anxieties that parents have about going to school because they have a place to go and then faces that they know, which will increase parents coming into the schools.
Time. Moving on to the next question for Pamela. How can a Board of Education best communicate with its constituent groups?
I think that the Board of Education should be out in the community as much as possible. They should be visiting schools. They should go to the DAC and the SAC committees. They should go to sporting events, music events, all of the school events. The face-to-face interactions that board members have with their community makes us understand what's happening in our community, and then we can better serve the community. So we need to be approachable. We're just regular people, but we have the honor of serving our children in a different capacity. So that's what I think.
Okay, Henry, same question.
Well, Pam and I have the privilege of being in the largest district. We have the most schools to visit, but I agree, we should be visiting our schools on a rotational basis and getting to know not only the staff, including the janitors, by the way, but our parents. And I would even say that we need to have some board meetings rotated throughout the school system. And that would generate more enthusiasm for students and parents to join with us, which would, in my estimation, increase the good that we are trying to do.
Okay, we go now to Joe with the next question.
Henry, it's for you. What should the public schools be doing to increase equity for students?
Equity and excellence. That is the policy that we just had approved earlier this year. I am not in favor of changing anything right now. That is still in the process of being worked out at the guideline and curriculum level. The policy's there, but nothing else has been put in place yet. So it's going to take some time. I don't think it will even be seen this school year, but that gives time to do things in the proper way, as I mentioned earlier, in getting the finishing touches on what the board has already set as policy. So we need to look at it closely and get it done correctly.
And Pam, same question about doing something to, how would you increase equity among our students?
So this issue goes back to JVC, which is the Yazzie Martinez lawsuit, and it also deals with student connection. So I'm a firm believer in culturally and linguistically responsive teaching for all students, because I want all students' voices to be heard and to be validated in the classroom. As we know, multiple perspectives permit students to make connections and associations and comparisons, but above all, students learn from each other's life experiences, which promotes a greater worldview, an appreciation of other languages and other cultures and other points of view. And I believe that is the goal of education.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on to the next question for Pamela. How do you assess the district's safety measures taken to prevent the spread of COVID-19?
I am extremely proud of Las Cruces Public Schools and everything they have done to make sure that our schools and as an extension out the community, how they've been protecting the community from the spread of COVID. They are following the guidelines set forth by the CDC and by policies set forth by the New Mexico Public Education Department. And these guidelines have been scientifically proven to help stop the spread of COVID-19 as well as the Delta variant. So I believe that our job is to make everyone safe in the public schools. And so Las Cruces Public Schools has improved all of the HVAC systems in the schools so that they are getting cleaner filtered air. They're with the mask policy and the distancing policy, they are doing everything they can within their power to make sure everyone is safe. And I applaud those efforts.
Okay, Henry, same question.
Basically, part of that is correct. I don't always agree with the very strict regulations that our governor has put upon us. Here at the Mission, of course, we did shelter in place for a time. In all of this, since COVID started in 2020, I have had one positive case among those residents who are living at the Mission. We did it definitely through cleanliness. People sanitize 3 times a day every surface in the Mission. And I think that was a big key to having no cases when we did open back up. That was the only time we've had one case, and it was very recent. So it may have been a Delta case, I do not know. But we have kept it clean. We have people going in and out.
All right, we're at time. We will move now to Joe for the next question.
And Henry, it's to you. The Las Cruces Public Schools recently increased pay to deal with a shortage of substitute teachers, and pay for full-time teachers is much lower than competing districts like in El Paso. What should be done about this, if anything?
You know, this is one area where I've put a lot of thought into this. I think that in many cases, we need to get the money to the teachers, even if we have to offer early retirement to some of those who are in the administrative building, in front office positions, who are no longer teaching. After all, education money is to go to the classroom. I understand the teachers union and their concern for their longtime teachers, but the money should be where the students are. So I applaud giving the increases, but it should be done even if we have to cut at the administrative level.
And Pam, same question to you.
So it is important to know that we are indeed in a staffing crisis in the Las Cruces Public Schools throughout the state, throughout the nation. So I'm committed as a board member to find the money to make sure we can attract and retain qualified staff. At the state level, I would secure the funding necessary to make that happen. And at the district level, I will support pay increases for educators, and this includes teachers and all support staff. Wouldn't it be great if teachers came to Las Cruces from El Paso to work because we offered competitive salaries?
Thank you. Back to Anthony.
All right, Pamela, what
Yes.
do you see as the biggest challenge for Las Cruces Public Schools?
I think at this moment, our biggest challenge is COVID trauma. We've dealt with so much loss in our community, and the students who have been disconnected from school, disconnected from their peers, and teachers who have been disconnected from their students. So there's a lot going on right now, and it's a really pivotal, wow, I can't say that word, time in education. So we need to work on creating equitable outcomes for all students, and we need to work on students' social and emotional learning. You cannot introduce curriculum when you haven't yet created a community and created a safe place for students. And I think that's the way we can start. We have a lot of challenges right now, but I know Las Cruces Public Schools can overcome them.
Henry, same question.
COVID really did us a favor in many respects. I think we were too complacent in doing things the same way that we always had. What COVID has forced us to do, even in the schools, is to think outside the box and come up with ways that we can still reach the students, have them learn and or catch up from last year. And doing that has made us better, even as a school system and a community, because I think many of these challenges will be met because of what we've learned by not being complacent. So in saying that, it goes along with what Pamela had already said. But we have to continue to strive to come up with new ways of teaching, even by combining all of our actions, subjects into one.
All right,
class.
we are at time, and we will now go to the final question with Joe.
Henry, as a board member, where would you look to make budget cuts if this was necessary?
Well, not being on the board at this time, that is a difficult question. And that is one of the areas that I learned early on in administration, is that when you come into something new, you aren't looking to change anything drastically because you might make a mistake. So we are going to have to evaluate with the new members who are on the board. And then after a time period of evaluation, I think then we would be equipped to make the proper decisions on which way to go. As far as budget cuts, whether it's out of building acquisition or land acquisition, we need to figure out which area first and then take the appropriate steps.
And Pam, same question. As a board member, where would you look to make budget cuts if it was necessary?
First of all, I hope we wouldn't have to make budget cuts. But if we need to, I would secure funding at the state level and then work on a long-term plan to make sure that the funding goes where it needs to be year after year. A lot of times when we get an excess, not an excess, but more money, we have a tendency to spend it all and then not looking at the long-term results. I would also prioritize people when I was making budget cuts, and I would also prioritize the money that goes directly to the classroom. And I think we should examine all the great resources that we have in our district, because we have a vast base of knowledge and experts right in our own backyard, and we should be spending our money locally. We need to work smarter, not harder, and make sure our money is spent where it'll do the most good, and that's with the students.
Thank you. Anthony?
Okay, we are out of time. Thanks for joining us for Election 2021, the Las Cruces School Board Forum for District 2. We want to thank the candidates, and special thanks to Joe Galván Nash with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. Join us next week for a forum with the candidates in District 3. Have a great week.